Okay, tonight we have something different with the Premier League coming back this weekend. We decided to have a little preview show looking at the top 6. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any Manchester City fans on today, so we'll maybe discuss them at the end. But we're going to start off tonight with Graeme, the Tottenham Hotspur fan. How are you doing, man?
All right, Morris. Thanks for having me. I'm good.
So, first question, what's going on with Harry Kane? And second question, how do you think you're going to do this year?
As a Spurs fan, I have no idea what's going to happen with Harry Kane. It's down to Daniel Levy. He's the money maker. Well, he's where the money goes, and but it's good that we actually have made a few signings, but the signings that we have made have only been goalkeeper and in defence. So if Harry was to leave, we kind of need we kind of need a striker, more like it. And where we're going to finish, I think the Europa League is probably our destination for the next few seasons. Anyway, that's what I think.
And what do you think about the manager coming in, Nuno? Are you excited to see maybe Matt Doherty get a fair share now of game time this year with a new system, maybe?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing a few of the lads getting a bit of confidence back. But obviously, some confidence they didn't have when Mourinho was there, because Mourinho wasn't giving them a chance. The likes of Harry Winks and the likes of Doherty, he was in and out with Aurier. We didn't know who was going in, who was going out, and chopping and changing the defence, like is outdoor playing in defence today, or they're playing in midfield today, but it's good to see. Good to see, and hopefully that Nuno gives the lads a chance to prove themselves.
He'll do nothing.
We'll see.
Good.
Anyone else want to jump in on Spurs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on, yeah.
Jeez, I was chomping at the bit there. They'll do fucking nothing. I was very surprised today to even hear that Lautaro is still fucking in the mix. Listen, if you had Harry Kane staying at the club and Lautaro went into Spurs, then it's a different kettle of fish. You know what I mean? But can you see Levy being that ambitious? That's the problem, because he's a little rat bastard. You know that he doesn't like putting that extra money into making the team too much better. It's all about what he gets back in return. Even though I'm sure all the lads would agree here that spending that possible 80, 90 million, whatever it may be, on Lautaro, if you put him up front with Kane, would probably be a phenomenal partnership. You know what I mean? Because Harry Kane does have a great football IQ, but I just personally don't see Tottenham and Daniel Levy in particular being that ambitious. I just want to lay that out there.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
It sounds familiar to the situation that we're in, James.
How do you mean?
In terms of lack of ambition.
Yeah, I suppose so. But then again, I mean, we spend so much money every season. I feel like I don't know, people's conception of ambition is so different. But we have spent so much money in the past couple of years that I don't think this is a money problem, to be honest. I think the ownership is a problem in itself. Take away the money problem. We've got owners that they could spend 200 million quid every season. It doesn't mean that they're good owners necessarily. You look at what they did at the Super League. You look at the way there's no communication with the fans compared to the way the Villa CEO communicated so brilliantly and eloquently after Grealish left the club. Where was that when we sold Nasri, Fabregas, Van Persie? We've been through those tough times, and we've never had any communication from Stan Kroenke, and we've had a few half-assed communications from Josh Kroenke. And the signings we have made have been part of a failed regime where we've had, Raul Sanelli come in, who's now been kicked out the door, replaced with Idu. So all that money we spent on the likes of Mustafi, Lucas Perez, all these players that did nothing for us, that have now been shoehorned out of the club, that have just seen us regress in that time since we spent all that money. And now we're part of a new regime that's very much an experiment, despite the FA Cup win last year. I mean, it's a lot of up in the air experimentation, not quite sure where we're heading, but, you know, we'll believe in, you know, what we've got. What's that saying? Trust the process. I think that maybe glosses over a little bit of what is a faltering experiment at times, but I think there's still a lot to be excited about. I think there's a lot to be patient about, but at the minute, you know, we're just not where we need to be. And as football fans, we're so exceedingly impatient.
Arsenal didn't get their annual hand-me-down from Chelsea this year either. It was kind of
thank God
disappointing.
No, I mean, we seem to be handing it the other way.
I'm only kidding.
There's still 2 weeks to go on the transfer window.
No, I was like, Willian was actually quite one that I thought would at least, do you know what I mean, that would work out a little bit better than it did. And obviously in the first 2 weeks, it looked like it was promising, especially from an Arsenal perspective. But it just seemed that it didn't. I mean, I couldn't believe when David Luiz's contract was renewed as well. I mean, you guys, how do you guys feel about those two players in terms of, because obviously, you know, for me as a Chelsea fan, David Luiz won a Champions League and whatnot, and so I was happy with that. And Willian was always one of those players as well that was very like Marmite with Chelsea fans. You know, they either loved him or they hated him. I'd be interested to get your perspective on that.
I was a big advocate of David Luiz. I thought under Emery he was horrendous, but I thought when Arteta came in, he really steadied the ship with him. So for 18 months, I thought he was probably our best centre half. And I think that's saying a lot, given, you know, the characteristics that come with a player like David Luiz. And don't get me wrong, made hell of a lot of mistakes at times, but the season just gone, I thought he was, you know, impeccable for the most part. The way he led the line, his character shone through. He's playing out from the back. I think that's something we're going to miss. And, you know, I'd have been more than happy if we'd have signed him up for another year. I thought he was genuinely that positive last season. And I'm disappointed that, you know, he's going to Turkey. I think he's still at a level above the clubs that he's being linked with. I just think that's a real shame. I think that's a real shame, personally. Willian, on the other hand, I think he's by far the worst signing this club has ever made. And I don't take, you know, I'm deadly serious when I say that. I've seen this club sign the likes of Squillaci, Jovino, Park Ju-young. Willian is up there for me as the worst signing we've ever made. Just, you know, he's come back to pre-season overweight. He's looked disinterested in all the games he's played in, apart from that one against Fulham. I'd have been open to signing him on a 2-year deal. But the 3-year deal we penned him down to, that was just horrendous business. I mean, we've got the guy till he's 30, 35 almost. Like it's not a good bit of business on our part, and I think we're going to really struggle to get him off the books. I think he was linked with Inter Miami, and there were very deeply negotiated talks, but then it broke down because he didn't accept the salary they were offering him, because I think he's on like 250 grand a week or something ludicrous. So it's a huge problem for us. You either terminate that contract and have to pay him off a load, or you just deal with him being part of the team, being a rotten egg at the back of the squad. So it's not a good situation to be in. But he's not the only one like that. We've got, you know, probably 10 players we could list: Kolasinac, Maitland-Niles, Cedric, all these kind of deadbeats that we need to shift on, which is, it's a very big part of the fundamental problem at Arsenal. I mean, just all these players that we can't seem to get off the book.
James, question for you: Is it fair to judge Willian on last year's season, considering how poor Chelsea were or Arsenal were throughout the season? I mean, with the exception of kind of Tierney, Smith Rowe, and Bissaka. I mean, who else really performed? In fairness, you know.
Yeah, I think it is definitely fair to hold him to account for that, because he was a contributing part of that problem. In the games he did play in, he was horrendous. Genuinely, that, you know, as Arsenal fans, we watched him for 90 minutes week in, week out at the start, because Arteta persisted with him over Pepe, and it was Pepe that, when he got that chance in the last 4 to 6 months of the season, really came to the fore. And I think he gets a lot of unwanted criticism, when actually I think we're starting to see now he's actually becoming a very good footballer in the Premier League. And if he'd have got those opportunities earlier on in the season, if Smith Rowe had got those opportunities earlier on in the season, you can't help but wonder what could have been. Because our downfall last season for me was that shocking run at the start, where we lost something. I can't remember how many home games it was on the bounce. It was the worst start to a league we'd had in God knows how many years. If that hadn't happened, then I genuinely think, I sound ludicrous here, but we could have been pushing for fourth, because that second half of the season in the league was so positive. I think we were one of the best teams in the league from 2021 onwards. So I probably sound disillusioned saying that, but that's where the positives are from an Arsenal point of view. But it's the fact that Arteta persisted with Willian for so long, persisted with a failing system for so long, tried so many different ideas, playing Willian at false nine in one instance. I think part of it is Arteta's. I think a lot of it is Arteta's fault for that period that we went through, and I think he's very, very, very fortunate not to have been sacked at some point in that period. I think he's very fortunate not to have been sacked after the Villarreal defeat. But Willian's lack of effort, lack of trying, lack of work rate. I mean, there's so many things I can put it down to with him, and the fact he's come back, in the shape that he has done for the new season, just is the icing on the cake for me in terms of his ambition. He went to Dubai when we were in the lockdown. There's lots of things I can attribute to why Willian is not a player I fondly welcome at Arsenal, and the sooner we can get him out of the club, the better. Sounds incredibly harsh, but I think he's been just an absolutely detrimental signing for us.
There's parallels there, isn't there, between him and Aubameyang, though, isn't there?
There's a what, sorry?
There's parallels there between himself and Aubameyang. When you talk about the issues that you're having, you know what I mean? I mean, Aubameyang, how dissimilar is Aubameyang? Has he ever looked so disinterested? And he's your captain. And he often went into business for himself outside of COVID at times last season as well.
I'm not disregarding that with Aubameyang. He got a tattoo or something. The guy, I love Aubameyang, but the guy, is a bit thick. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. He does stupid things. Like someone took a photo of him on his phone driving his Lamborghini the other day. Like this guy does things that as a footballer you should not do in public eye. You're going to be papped everywhere you go, whether it's by paparazzi, whether it's by making this Instagram story. That will happen, and he doesn't seem to have that awareness. Lovely guy, I love him, but he does stupid things. I think where he looks disinterested in games, I think all Arsenal fans are very aware of that. I think, again, similarly, it's been down to the system where it's not particularly worked. He's played at centre forwards and it's not worked. He's not the type of player, like a Giroud, for example, that we've typically had as our centre forward that's led the line, that's held up play. He doesn't do that. He'll be in the box at the right time to get the right passes. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have said no to him if he was coming back to Arsenal on a free transfer. Joking, I would have done. But no, Aubameyang's always had that in his locker. I think that look of disinterest at times. But the fact is, in the past, he's had the service. When we had 2018-19, I think, one of his best seasons, where we had, Ozil pulling the strings, who did have a particularly good season that year. When he's had those players around him, you don't really notice the faults in his game as much. But now I think because the team is below par, you're starting to notice that he's below par and he's not quite capable, as he's getting older, of dragging the team through those situations. I do think it's down to lack of confidence as well. There are certain situations where you can't help but feel we should take a shot on in previous seasons where he has done. But I've got a good feeling about Aubameyang this season. I know he's not scored a goal in pre-season, but I think there's a bit more to be positive about him, and it's just down to how Arteta's going to play him. He doesn't work on the left, and he doesn't work as a lone centre forward. So it's a tough one for Arteta. I can sympathise with him, but we've got to find a way of getting this guy scoring goals again.
Yeah, my fear of him is as captain, when you've got so much youth in there with Tierney and Smith Rowe and Saka and all. This is the guy that they're looking to, and he's just a constant melt at times. He's a constant letdown at times in terms of things that he does. And he wouldn't be a guy that would be inspiring me if I'm a Smith Rowe or a Saka or a Tierney. I mean, Tierney is captain material by a mile in the future, without a shadow of a doubt. He's an exceptional player. But it must be very frustrating for those younger guys on the team to be looking to the carry on of this guy, and he's your captain. I mean, he's the captain of Arsenal Football Club. You know what I mean? And he treats it, to be honest with you, last season at times he treated it like it was an absolute joke.
Yeah, I think most Arsenal fans would be in complete agreement with you, and I am as well. But the one thing I'd say is you've got to remember why he's in the position that he is captain. And that's because of what happened with Granit Xhaka, where, he booed the fans, told them to F off, And that's another horrible situation that's gone on at Arsenal. Like, you know, it's such a mess. I think I don't think anyone would want Xhaka to be captain again, but if you're looking at a natural leader, Xhaka is that guy. And the fact of what happened where he tore the armband off, he virtually took the shirt off walking down the tunnel. It shows how passionate he is as a character. I think they're the characteristics you want in a leader. Unfortunately, what he's done means that he'll never captain Arsenal again. But you look at some of the other contenders we've got in this squad that could potentially be captain. The obvious one is Kieran Tierney. And for me, when Aubameyang does eventually leave Arsenal, maybe even sooner, Tierney will be that guy. I've got zero doubts about that in my mind. He is exemplary on the pitch. Model professional, he doesn't care about his cars, doesn't care about what he wears. He's just a proper footballer. And that's what I really like about him. And I think he's the right man to lead this team. And when you've got other players in this team like Smith Rowe, like Saka, some of the other youth players coming through, Partey as well, not a youth player, but humble guys. That's what I like about this team. That they're very down to earth, really interested in their football, and they need a proper captain to lead them. And Tierney is 100% that man.
Are you still 100% in on Arteta? Is he the man to lead you back to top 4?
I can't say 100% hand on heart, mate. I'm aware we're talking about Arsenal a lot because we're quite a head case at the minute, aren't we? But Arteta, I was excited about him when we were originally linked with him. And I'm talking about like in 2018. It's been a long while now since Arteta's been in the mix at Arsenal, and it was when it was a toss-up between him and Emery. And I was genuinely more excited about Arteta because, you kind of thought, why are they going for him? And there was that sense of mystery about it. And you can't help but feel that, if we hadn't have gone for Emery in the first place, how much further we'd be along with the Mikel Arteta project, because we basically a year and a half basically with Emery. Don't get me wrong, we play some good football. And the one thing I'll credit Emery for is the players he did bring in. He brought in the likes of Tierney. He brought through youth, brought in Martinelli. He gave Saka his opportunity. So I don't think we can totally criticise Emery. He did do some good things, but in terms of the long-term project at Arsenal, if we'd have brought Arteta in maybe that bit earlier on in his career, maybe it was too early for him, maybe he didn't feel ready for it, but it was, he's coming into steady a ship that's, in real choppy waters at the minute. And I think it's a difficult job for any manager involved in football coming into Arsenal at the minute. But to get us into top 4, I think is a monumental ask, which pains me to say because it was such a persistent thing under Wenger, and it feels weird that we've not been in the Champions League for 5 years now. Because it was for me growing up, it was just Champions League Tuesday, Wednesday night, that's done and dusted. Whereas now it's we've got so much work to do to get in there. And looking at the teams above us and the money they're spending. You've got United, Chelsea, City, Liverpool. I don't see us finishing above any of them. So it's going to be really, really tough. But, we'll see how this team clicks. I'm not being entirely inspired by pre-season, but make of that what you will. It doesn't really count for anything. We've got that game on Friday night. If we perform, put in a good victory, fingers crossed, I still probably won't take much from it because we did that last season. It's those games against Chelsea and City that I'll really be judging this team on. And that's when I'll be able to, get a good idea of where we'll be able to finish. If we can beat the teams we're meant to beat, then I think we've got it in us. But that's a huge ask. Like away from home, we're unpredictable. At home, we're unpredictable. We need to put a good run together, and that's something we didn't do at all last season.
Tough enough game to start with as well, isn't it? Tough enough game to start off with. Sorry, a tough enough game to start off with as well, down at Brentford in a new stadium with a boisterous crowd back in the Premier League after 70-odd years or whatever it is,
Yeah, I mean, I don't fancy us, to be honest with you. The way things are, I'm sounding so pessimistic at the minute, but that game against, the likes of Ivan Toney, the way they played I watched them in all the playoff games, and I thought they were really, really good. They play really fast, flowing football. They've got such an enthusiastic manager. That place is going to be buzzing. It's going to be absolutely buzzing when we go there. And, we're a team that, can go into our show a little bit, especially away from home. We've really struggled at the past in a place like Selhurst Park. Old school away grounds where you've got that raucous crowd. We do tend to struggle at times. So, if I was a betting man, Brentford or draw would be my tip for that one. but it's going to be a tough game. But we're capable of beating them. That's the thing. We've got the quality there to do it. But it's whether we will or not. And that's always been the case with Arsenal over the past couple of years.
Yeah, good show.
I think we should let Martin get a word in as a Man United fan. Like any good conversation about Tottenham, that just went straight onto Arsenal. Sorry about that, Graeme. We had to get it out of the way. Martin,
It's kind of true, though.
yeah. Martin, what's coming from Manchester United this year? Is Sancho going to be the man or what?
If you look at his stats from the previous couple of seasons, or previous 3 seasons in the Bundesliga, he's been double digits in goals and assists for the past 3 seasons. Well, bar last season, I think he had 8 goals at the end of last season. If he's able to transfer that to the Premier League, we've signed the gem. The odds of him doing that is fairly slim. We look at last year, 2 of the biggest stars of the Bundesliga arrived at Chelsea, and Havertz and Timo Werner, and neither of them hit the ground running. Now, towards the end of the season, they both started playing much, much better. I think Kai Havertz is going to have a standout season for them this year. He just looked like he was hitting the ground running. But if we could get that kind of return from Jadon Sancho, I'd expect good things from United this season. I thought we'd done very well in the transfer window. The 2 main areas we needed to really upgrade was that right wing. We haven't had a right winger since Antonio Valencia left, and that's a long time ago now. And we needed a centre-back beside Harry Mcguire, because Lindelof, even though he's a good player, he's a good professional player, I don't think he's the standard we need to, say, catch the likes of, say, Liverpool and City on a consistent basis. And I think bringing Varane in, he has the experience. He's not that old either. Varane at 28 years of age is a really good signing for United at the moment. If he can adapt to the Premier League, I think United will be a solid enough outfit this year, and I'd find it very hard to see United drop out of the top 4 if we can find form.
Does he need to win a trophy?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think he needs to win something this year. He really does. Be it a League Cup or an FA Cup even, just something to get the ball rolling. Last year was very, very disappointing. And especially when we got to the business end of a lot of trophies, and especially the Europa League, like, we really threw that away. It was just a bad night. It was a really bad night for the football club in general, because I think if we can get 1 trophy in the way, I think it'll lead to a few more. Now, the problem is the teams we're chasing down at the moment, a Liverpool team last year not in great form, but dealing with some really, really bad injuries. But if Liverpool can get back to the form of the previous 2 seasons before that, Man City, like, everyone is chasing down Man City. They just look super. They looked really good last year, and they're just going to get stronger and stronger. But he really needs a trophy this year. Will he be sacked if he doesn't win a trophy? I don't think so. But it'll put a lot of pressure on him.
Martin, question for you. Why do you think United are so lenient on Solskjaer? I mean, he's getting some mileage out of that Munich goal, isn't he?
Yeah, I think the main reason we're being lenient on him at the moment, and the fans as well, especially, like, he's always going to be a hero to the fans. But it's the first time since Ferguson left that you can actually see the club moving in the right direction. Under Van Gaal, I know we won our FA Cup under Van Gaal, Europa League under Mourinho, but as soon as them seasons were over, you're like we've won a trophy, but will next season be any better? Are we any closer to getting back towards challenging for a Premier League or getting into the Champions League and getting to the business end of it? And I feel under Solskjaer that we're moving forward towards where United should be. United shouldn't be worried about Europa Leagues. United shouldn't be worried about League Cups, especially the money United are spending. United are spending as much as anybody, and United need to be getting back towards winning Premier Leagues, and they need to get Champions Leagues, or at least the business end of a Champions League. And Solskjaer is the first manager since Ferguson that's moving us in that direction. So I think that's why the board gave him some leniency, and I think that's why the fans are giving him a lot of leniency as well.
Do you not think, though, like, being a COVID year last year as well, like, you know, you mentioned, I heard you mention Havertz and Werner, which is a good point, and I'm glad you did. And we'll get into that when it's my turn, but just staying on United more so. And this goes for all clubs. I think with a COVID year, last year was just a weird Premier League in general, wasn't it? You know, like for every team, like obviously with no fans, you know, in the stadiums, you know, there was certain players. I mean, I know with Havertz, he was starting to fucking click, and then all of a sudden, boom, he got hit with COVID, and then had to come back with Timo Werner, blah blah blah. He was out on the wing, and it's the same with United. Like you kind of saw players like Edinson Cavani kind of more towards the business end of the season, kind of standing up and kind of producing the goods. It was just a very weird season for all clubs, I think, last year, and I don't think it gets talked about enough that because it was a COVID year, it was just a very, very strange season for all clubs. And I don't mean that just to, you know, all of us can make excuses for our individual clubs on this one. I think this year now we can see a proper Premier League season back with fans back. Would you agree with that, lads?
100%. Oh yeah,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's going to make a massive difference. Even looking at United's game against Everton at the weekend, I know it's a pre-season friendly, but when the goals went in, the place was electric, and it just reminds you the way it is. And
it meant more though. That's what I'm saying. That even felt better for you as a fan than watching like the goal going in and hearing nothing with that fake noise. You know what I mean?
But there was a lot of times last season. There was a lot of times last season where United really needed Old Trafford behind them in some of them tight games against Sheffield United and teams down towards the bottom end. United really struggled, and they went a bit lax during the games. They kind of shut off, and they came to the biggest point of the season where they were relying on the final 20 minutes in so many games to turn over teams that are 15, 16 places behind them in the league. And I think with the crowd there, I don't think an Old Trafford crowd would allow United to coast the 45 minutes and then try to turn it on in the second half.
Make no mistake about it, Martin. Those prawn sandwich eaters were there watching. They were there live.
Martin, quick question for you. The signings that you've made, obviously Sancho, spectacular at 70 million. And obviously Varane at 34 million. I mean, you've literally signed both those guys for nearly 30 million less than what you were going to pay for Sancho last year. But the conundrum really is in midfield, isn't it? It's the McFred situation, Matic, Bruno, Pogba. It's that kind of combination in the middle that Ollie still has to try and figure out, isn't it? Because I think you have a lot of cover there now in defence, especially with signing Varane. And you have Alex Telles in there as well as cover and stuff like that, Brandon Williams. So you've great cover at the back. But I think the goalkeeper situation needs to be sorted out. They need to figure out what the hell it is there. And I think in the midfield, I think is where Ollie needs to figure things out. I think up front, you're spoiled for riches up front in terms of the quality you have there with Cavani. Greenwood is so clinical. Rashford will be coming back, obviously, after having the shoulder injury, so he's going to be a much better player. He was carrying that knock most of the season. Martial, if he just put a fucking smile on his face, might be a decent fucking baller. And I just think that's what needs to be sorted out. But I think Ollie's problem at the moment is figuring out that midfield pivot, how that's going to work. And not more often than not, he reverts back to the old school of McFred, which I think really damages United's chances.
Yeah.
I think this year, I think at certain times this year against certain opposition, I think United is going to, instead of 4-2-3-1, I think we're going to go 4-3-3, and we're going to play with Pogba if he sticks around, if he signs the deal, or if we keep him till the end of next season and let him go for nothing. We're going to play with Bruno, and we're going to play with one hole in midfielder behind him. And the main reason we're going to, I think we're going to use that formation as well, is everyone is forgetting that United need this player, they need that player. United spent close to £50 million on Donny van de Beek last year. And if they're not going to try fit him in this season, they might as well let him go this summer, because everyone knows he has ability. They just need to find that right formation and try fit him in. And I think with Varane going in there now, I think Ole will go 4-3-3 at certain times. Harder Champions League games. Yeah, he was, and he hasn't he gone the big. Yeah, I actually expect a big season out of him. He's going to get a lot more minutes this season, and I think he could be, even though we have our Sancho's, our Bruno's, Varane coming in, Mcguire. The defence is in unbelievable form. Wan-Bissaka may be a little bit shaky, but Luke Shaw's in the form of his life. I think that Donny van de Beek could possibly be the most important player at Old Trafford this season.
Yeah, and Mcguire coming off a great Euros and scoring goals as well, which is huge for United.
Yeah, and I think Mcguire as well. Everyone just because he's like the captain and the leader and he leads England as well. Everyone forgets that Harry Mcguire isn't an old man yet. He could do with the experience of a Varane beside him just as much as Bissaka could do with the experience of a Varane beside him. It's going to help him along, and I think he'll feel a lot less shaky back there with Varane instead of Lindelof.
Martin, what about Ollie? Are you 100% in on Ollie?
Yeah, I am, because what we talked about earlier on, that you can see the club moving forward. But the moment that really swung me as a fan for Ollie was the transfer window last summer when we bought Van de Beek, Alex Telles, and Amad Diallo mainly. Huge money for the likes of Amad Diallo at 18 years of age. And I looked at that the transfer news that day and seen Diallo coming in. It was talked about for a while, and I thought to myself, yeah, I really like seeing this from Ollie, because last year Ollie could have got the sack halfway through the season. Now, we had a good run, but if things had got a little bit worse, if we got dragged down in the top four battle, he could have got the sack. But he's doing the right thing for United. He's bringing in the players that's going to move the club forward. The odds is, even now as we stand, by the time Amad Diallo is ready to slot into the United team, Solskjaer won't be manager. And he's still buying players for the future that he knows he's not going to get the best out of. Whereas when Jose Mourinho was there, when Louis van Gaal was there, they wanted finished articles to keep themselves in the job for another year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. So I really like doing that. Tactically, he's naive sometimes. He's excellent sometimes. Against the better teams, he tends to do really well. But like the prime example was the Europa League final last year. All the substitutions were really reactive instead of proactive. As a fan looking at the game, you can see what's happening. You're like, this is going to go wrong. And it just takes them a while to do it. The substitutions were bad. And look, like all football fans, I kind of threw the ties out of the pram that night, got a bit angry. It's like he's not the man to lead forward. But when things calm down, you see he's doing a good job at United. Is he going to be there in 3 or 4 years' time? Probably not. But I don't think United should get rid of Ole. He's doing a good job at the moment. He's moving the club in the right direction. We seem to be a lot more astute in the transfer market compared to other years. And we have a lot of good talent coming through as well. Like at the moment, everyone is talking that United they're trying to buy Kieran Trippier from Atletico Madrid. And United want that deal for, I think, someone around 20-25 million. And everyone is like, that's not a good idea. But the main thing with that is, and Andy Mitten on United We Stand, he was talking a couple of weeks ago, and he said it's part of Ole's long-term plan, a 2-year plan, that he's going to bring in cover for Wan-Bissaka for 2 years, and we're going to get young Ethan Laird off on loan. So he's meant to be going to Swansea next week on a championship loan, and he's meant to be coming back for hopefully a Premier League loan next year. And Solskjaer, out of all the youth talent at United, he fully believes that in 2 years' time, Ethan Laird is going to replace Wan-Bissaka right back. So it's little things like that he's planning down the future. I think that's probably what keeps me on his good side. So hopefully it'll keep going that way at the moment.
Yeah, I think he's looking for Trippier in for his final ball, because Cavani is unbelievable in the box. And Trippier has a much better final ball than Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka probably be better defensively, but Trippier in that final. Yeah. And he's probably assuming that United will be on the front foot a lot this season.
Yeah, I think so. I think United will push a bit higher up the pitch this year as well compared to other years, because our biggest issue before was with Mcguire and Lindelof. There was no pace down the middle. And when Mcguire was pushing up in the midfield with the ball, if we lost it in the first or second phase, Lindelof was getting put one-on-one. And he's possibly one of the worst one-on-one defenders I have seen playing for United, because if someone is running at him, he'll turn around and he'll look over his shoulder and he'll run back into the 6-yard box. He won't make a tackle. And I think with Varane there, I think there'll be a bit more confidence in defence anyway. And it'll just lead the likes of Bruno and the likes of Rashford maybe to just push that little bit farther up and hopefully put a bit of pressure on the first ball this year, because a lot of teams played out very easily from their own box last year. United weren't putting on enough pressure.
Yeah, there's a man there standing behind me who knows exactly how good Lindelof is one-on-one.
That was a once-off. That was a once-off.
Next team, please.
Yeah. Well, what's a successful season before we finish up on United?
The optimist in me would say that we'll challenge a little bit closer than last year. I think second. I would be probably as good as United can do this season. I can't see us passing City, especially if they get Harry Kane. I think Chelsea is going to be a lot closer to United next season, obviously, with the signing. Lukaku is a huge signing for them. I think second place would be a good season. And like I said earlier on, I can't see United dropping out of top four. I think if United do drop out of top four, I think Solskjaer will lose his job.
Okay. Let's talk about the signing of the season, Lukaku.
Well, I just have to say there, that's a bit ambitious from Martin there. That second is like the best that they can hope for. Like, I mean, you're punching there now. You're not dealing with Frank Lampard anymore here. You're dealing with Thomas Tuchel. This is a two-horse race this season, and I think United should be grateful for third and should thank Chelsea for it. To be fair, and thank Chelsea that they didn't go after Sancho and all. We even let them have Varane in the end. To be fair, we just thought we'd go after Jules Koundé, a better, younger version. No, I think realistically, all joking aside, we have to have Peter on this as well. I think for Chelsea, the Lukaku was the missing link for Chelsea, without a shadow of a doubt. Under Thomas Tuchel, he's the missing link. You know what I mean? Martin kind of alluded to Timo Werner earlier on, and I was kind of chomping at the bit to talk about that because I've been Timo Werner's biggest kind of defender and biggest advocate because, I think Frank, unfortunately, as much as I love Frank, fucked Timo up early on by kind of playing him out on the wing just to get his Chelsea, youth project in Tammy Abraham in the centre. And this was after, like, at times where Timo was scoring goals. He was actually on a bit of a run. He'd scored a couple, and then he was pushed out to the left, which made no sense to me. To be honest with you, it kind of annoyed me at the time. Now I know this was at a time as well where Havertz was obviously out with COVID, and Hakim Ziyech unfortunately got injured in pre-season, and that's why I say, like, we've all kind of had our crosses to bear as fans of teams during COVID year, where certain things have happened that haven't really made it easy for players to come back the way they probably would have liked, you know what I mean? But I think the Lukaku signing, without a shadow of a doubt, is this isn't the Lukaku from Man United. And I think even Martin would agree with that.
Definitely. He's improved a lot since he went to Inter Milan. He got himself much fitter as well. I think his biggest problem at United was
the shape as well. I mean, he looks like he's ready for a WWE title run, to be honest with you. More so than a Premier League run.
His biggest problem at United was Jose.
Yeah, like it's with someone like a Thomas Tuchel in there, as I said, I'd say Timo Werner is chomping at the bit to play with Lukaku, and you could hear it in the interviews today up in Belfast. He's basically said, like, my best form with Leipzig came with playing with a big man, which he did with Christian Poulsen. That's where he got most of his goals, playing off a big target, and you can't really call Lukaku a target man. He looks like the traditional target man. But James, I'm sure, would agree, who has seen a lot of great target men back in the day. I think there's a bit more about Lukaku. Looking at him with Inter, the goals that he helped set up for Lautaro as well. Just those little touches. His touch that's the main thing, I think, for me with Lukaku, is his touch improved so much in Italy. And I think with the likes of a Tammy Abraham and stuff like that going to Roma, I think you'd see that also. You know what I mean? There's the little bits that you can pick up by being around some of these European players that you don't get in the UK game. You know what I mean? You just don't, because they're brought up differently, and that's not necessarily a slight on the UK game at all. It's just there's just always little differences, and that's why we see kind of, even with Italy, the way they play the game, it's just a little bit different. Their counter-attack style is much better than most. And I think Lukaku, that time he spent in Italy is going to benefit him big time. And I think, to be honest with you, I really do believe now that when you look at that Chelsea squad, there's two teams there as well as there's two teams in the Man City squad. And I would be very, very surprised if it's not a battle between Chelsea and Man City this year. I'm ready for questions.
Are you ruling Liverpool out?
Yeah. I think it's a straight battle, but I think it's a straight battle between Chelsea and City this year for the title. I think, and I'm not saying like by 10 points or so. I think Liverpool will be thereabouts, but I do honestly believe that it's going to be between City and Chelsea.
Yeah, just a quick question. You were saying about Lukaku playing just a little flick passes off for Timo Werner, but can you see Tuchel going to two up front?
Well, you see, it's the way Tuchel plays. He's had that false nine. If you actually watch the way he's played with Mount at times and with Havertz, he's had that. You know what I mean? He's had the floater. It's like almost a free roll. It's been called the false nine. Those of us that are old enough, like myself and Niall, remember it used to just be called a free roll. You know, I think you will definitely see that early on in the season for sure. You might even see it with Mount. I don't know, but I think Tuchel's that kind of modern manager in the Pep vein and Klopp vein that, you know, you won't really know what you're seeing. Like, you'll see it on paper what the formation is, but once the game is played, you'll see kind of flotation in and around the team. And James, I'm sure you analyse enough football that you'd probably understand what I mean by that.
Yeah.
You know, so
you reckon they're going to win it, finish in the top two for sure?
Well, I have to say that we're going to win it. Yeah, I have to. I mean, defending Champions League champions, I definitely believe that we're going to win it this year. I have to. I think that's the missing link. I think Jules Koundé coming in as a centre-back as well, I think it's a big upgrade on Kurt Zouma. I don't know why an Arsenal aren't going in for Kurt Zouma. I really don't. I mean, if ever you wanted to get a player from Chelsea that can actually help you, there's your fucking player. Like, and I don't know why you're letting West Ham get a free run on this one. I mean, the only reason he's not signed for Tottenham is because Chelsea just will refuse to sell to Tottenham, I think. Yeah. But you know what I mean? And Graeme, you know what I mean by that. I think it's just purely because of they'll always we remember. It's
always been that way. Yeah.
Remember when we tried to sign Modric, you know, for nearly 70 million, and then he sold him for like 40 million one season to fucking Real Madrid. So it's but I think with Arsenal, Chelsea have good kind of relations when it comes to negotiations. I think Kurt Zouma would be an absolute great player for Arsenal. I think it's not to say like, oh, we're giving you the shit while we take the gem. I think it's more so a case that when I look at the way Tuchel wants to play football, Koundé fits that narrative of his style of play more so than Zouma does, if that makes sense. He's a bit more kind of in the line of a Thiago Silva. He's kind of fancy on the ball and whatnot. Whereas Zouma is just he's decent on the ball, but he's a proper centre back. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I think it's without a shadow of a doubt. I don't see any reason why Chelsea wouldn't be in the. I mean, look, when you're talking to the top pundits of the world, a lot of them believe that Chelsea will win the league this year, and I can't see why we wouldn't with the squad that we have. And you know, when it comes to facing Man City one-on-one, they don't really want to look forward to these games this year because we absolutely destroyed them pretty much 3 games in a row towards the tail end of the season. You know, I understand when people are saying it all depends on whether Harry Kane signs for City. Look, Harry Kane is a great player. Harry Kane is Harry Kane. we don't know how he's going to fit in that Guardiola system either. You know what I mean? We don't. That's and you know, I think you could flip a coin. For me, you could flip a coin with Harry Kane and Lukaku at the moment, because you're talking about two of the world's elite strikers, and there's not many of them around. I just think, for me, Lukaku was a better fit for Chelsea's style of play than, say, a Harry Kane would be. So, yeah, it's interesting. And I do expect Liverpool to be up thereabouts. I just think that it's the squad depth, I think, that separates City and Chelsea more so than anything else. It's not a knock, you know. We can have the banter and all that, and I love banter, but I think it's more so the squad depth that the two teams have that kind of separates them from the pack.
Yeah, Niall. I don't know. I think in terms of our squad depth, I mean, to get on to Liverpool, I mean, I'm absolutely chomping at the bit for this season. I think last season was just so tough on us and so taxing mentally. I mean, between injuries to key players, COVID, obviously, no fans at Anfield is a massive thing. Of course, no fans at any of the stadiums is a massive thing, but it's an exceptional thing at Anfield if you've been there to see the fans and stuff like that. It's such an important part of it. But I also think, you know, Klopp losing his mother and the mental taxing of that on him and not being able to bury his mother properly, and also Alisson losing his dad, I think was a huge factor as well. But I think this year these boys are going to be chomping at the bit to make amends and put last season behind them. And I think they're going to feel like new signings. I think Jota, who I think was the standout player for Portugal in the Euros, I think is going to have a fantastic season. I think we know what we're going to get with Mo, Bobby and Mane.
Well, not more than Ronaldo, in fairness, no. Come on. Don't get too excited.
I don't know about that. I think at times at times he overshone Ronaldo at times in the Euros without a shadow of a doubt.
We're talking to a Liverpool fan, lads.
Yeah, you absolutely are. Don't forget it. But I also think as well, I think Liverpool will definitely be in the mix for the title this year without a shadow of a doubt. The other thing I would mention as well is I wouldn't be getting too drawn in on the depth of our bench. A lot of the problems we've had on our bench at times last season was the fact that we had so many players out injured and stuff like that as well.
Well, you complained about that last year, so where was the depth last year?
Yeah, there was no depth last year. I'm trying to explain to you why there was no depth, because
where's the depth this year then?
Well, the depth is there this year. I mean, you look at Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain has had an unbelievable pre-season. Absolutely brilliant player when he's fit and has a run of games.
Oh, mate, he had a lot of unbelievable pre-seasons for us and then did nothing in the season. I wouldn't get too drawn into that.
But I mean, in terms of having him as an option on your bench to spring from your bench. And I'd also mention Naby Keita as well. If we can possibly keep Naby Keita fit, I think at times he has shown certain aspects of his game that he can be an absolute baller in midfield.
I do like him. I actually really rate him, I have to say. And I think I do agree with you, Niall. In fairness, I'm teasing a little bit there, but I do think that you did, and I can concur with you when it comes to injuries and stuff like that, because Hakim Ziyech should have been a bigger player for Chelsea this year, and he's obviously had a pre-season this year that looks phenomenal. I would say watch out tomorrow in the Super Cup for Hakim Ziyech, because he seems like a player that Tuchel really likes. But I concur with Naby Keita. I think it's taken him a while to adapt to a certain style of play that obviously Klopp expects of him. But I think if he could properly stay fit, I think he's a baller as well. I really like him. He reminds me of Essien a little bit less aggressive, but similar.
I also think I think Konate is a huge signing. The guy is an absolute monster of a man. I don't know if anyone has seen the pictures of him, but this guy is absolutely huge, and he looks a proper footballer as well. The other thing I'd say as well is I don't think Liverpool have completed their business yet. I think you still could see one or two players coming in, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sol Niguez arrives and one other. The thing that I think we are lacking a little bit is we need a goal-scoring midfielder to chip in at times when the boys are sort of being put out of the game, if you like, up front and stuff like that. I think we need those runs from midfield to chip in a lot more to take the pressure off those front men. And I think if we can resolve that and get someone in of that ilk, I think Liverpool are in for a really big season this year with a lot to prove on the back of last season. You got to remember as well, lads, if you look at the back end of last season, that run of 10 games we had where we came from nowhere to finish third was an unbelievable achievement when you think about what happened in the season and the points that we dropped at home and the stupid points that we dropped through the season. To get third place for Liverpool last season was an incredible achievement.
Yeah.
And I think if we were able to go on that form and that run again and start the season that way, I think Liverpool's definitely going to be in the shake-up.
And Klopp, like, surely Klopp of all people, like, I mean, he's your general. You know what I mean? He's gonna wanna really fucking rally the troops this year, like, you know what I mean? And like, if it's a case that they're not signing too many players, I mean, he obviously fancies what he has. I mean, he is that kind of manager anyway, isn't he? He'll wait on the player that he wants rather than sign.
I don't think it's even the player that he wants. I think what's happened is, if you think about the players and when we brought them in under the Klopp development and the change he had to make to the squad very quickly to bring a little bit of success and get us back up there competing again. A lot of these guys' contracts are sort of coming up for review at the same time. So what happened this season is, and they've said it, this season has really been, or this transfer window has been about tying down the spine of the team to new contracts. And then they're going to look at 2022 in terms of really refreshing the squad and bringing in some marquee signings. And I think that's a prudent way to go as well, because you know something, I don't want to be getting too excited for Sol Niguez coming in if I thought the likes of Mane or Mo Salah or Virgil or Alisson were going to head out. And I think
is there a guarantee that he's coming in, though? Is there a guarantee that he's coming in?
No, there's not a guarantee that he's coming in, but certainly we have been the one mostly linked with him. And we certainly have been the one who have done the most inquiring. And I'd say what Liverpool are doing is they're waiting towards the back end of the transfer window for a bit of panic to kick in and save a few bob. The problem with Niguez at the moment is we've agreed the transfer fee for him. The stumbling block at the moment is the level of his wages. And I just think it's a very prudent approach for Liverpool this season to be tying those players down. That whole spine of the team, Fabinho, Trent, Alisson, Mo, Virgil, these guys, if we could tie all those guys down, then there's probably an opportunity there maybe to bring in maybe one or two players if you can move a player or two out. But I think it's vital to tie those contracts down. We don't want to see any of those players leaving at the moment.
It was interesting there that you mentioned Saúl Niguez as well, because I was just going to ask you, obviously Gini Wijnaldum heading off to PSG in the end. It looked like Barcelona for so long, but he finally settled in PSG. And I was going to say, he is going to be a huge loss for Liverpool, and Saúl Niguez would be a replacement, strong enough defensively, but as you're saying, can chip in with the odd goal and a bit more attacking. I think a lot of Liverpool's problems at the start of last year came with midfield imbalance when Thiago came in. And he was playing okay, but he didn't hit the ground running. But just as you got into that run of form, like you were saying, the 10 or 11 games at the end of the season, Thiago was starting to find his feet. And what do you see is the best midfield or the most balanced midfield for Liverpool going forward this season, if you do sign Saúl and if you don't sign Saúl?
Could I just say, before Niall does answer that question, I actually do believe that he's going to have a better season this year as well. He's too talented not to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what happened last season, there was such an imbalance all around that team, and playing midfielders in defence when we had other options and stuff like that, I think was a bad move. And having that trust in the likes of a Nat Phillips or a Reece Williams to go in there and do a job instead of Crowbar and other players. And like at one stage we'd Henderson playing in defence, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I think he'll go with the midfield. It'll be Fabinho, Henderson and Thiago initially. And I think if Niguez comes in, I think he might be the guy to step in there, because I do really think they're going to be focusing on midfielders who are going to produce goals. I think we badly need more goals from around the pitch. Obviously, Virgil chips in every so often with set pieces and stuff like that. So I think it's a big season for him as well coming back. He has a lot to prove. Kanate bedding in and stuff like that. But definitely I would say the key area is goals coming from midfield.
I just got a quick question on Oxlade-Chamberlain, because I know obviously as an ex-Arsenal player, I've watched him a lot. He was a big player for me growing up. I loved him and always thought he was going to do great things. Never happened for him at Arsenal until probably like the last stage of his career when he started playing right wing back for us. And that's actually where I think we saw his best football. I know obviously he went to Liverpool, aspiration to play in central midfield, and he's been so hot and cold for you guys. And he's had seasons where he's played off the bench, season where he's virtually out injured for the whole period. He's not really achieved to be a fixture in the Liverpool team. And I know you mentioned before about him being that spark off the bench, and that's where he always was for us. And I think he's very good at that role. But he's 28 now. Surely he's got to have aspirations to be playing regular football week in, week out. I mean, do you think he's going to be still? I think he's a useful part of your team, but do you think he's going to be, happy having that role for you?
I suppose it's a question of his own ambition, isn't it? Really, I mean, if he wants to justify week in, week out, then he'll probably have to take a move. But then again, if you look at pre-season before the Brazilian boys returned, he's been playing in that Bobby Firmino role. And he's been absolutely outstanding in pre-season in that Bobby Firmino role. So maybe he's creating a headache there for Klopp in terms of an option off the bench if Bobby isn't getting the joy he wants in a particular match or in a particular setup. But I'd see Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain having a big season this season with Liverpool. I think he'll play a lot more. I think he's had a real bad run of injuries at times. I mean, he got that horrific injury that time that kept him out for nearly a year, that most footballers' careers would end. But I think there's still a lot of football still to play in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. But I think it will be that spring from the bench option to change things up. But I think when you look at him, when he picks up the ball and he runs at the fences and he's well able to strike a ball, I think at times he's frightening to play against. Has
there been any changes to like Liverpool's fitness regime or the staff in the background? Because I mean, with that amount of injuries last year, like you have to be asking questions.
Well, you have to remember a lot of them are freakish kind of injuries as well. Like if you look at Virgil's one, I mean, Pickford just being an absolute lunatic. You know what I mean?
But that's something you can't. That's something you can't.
So you look at that one then, and then Joe Gomez was a similar type one, where he did a knee, and then Jota got injured as well. Henderson got injured. I don't think it's something to do with the fitness regime because the fitness regime that's there, I mean. But the question I'm asking you, Niall, is that the year previous, like they literally stuck with an 11 and didn't, like you were saying, like about squad depth. The one thing about Klopp is that he doesn't really like to dig into, he won't bring, he might put youth players on the bench and all, but it doesn't look like he trusts many of them. He kind of tends to stick with his 11 and that's it. Do you know what I mean? And I wonder. I think he's from that mentality that if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. You know what I mean? And I just think I know where you're coming from. If you're playing that,
you know what I mean? That's what I'm asking. Yeah, because I know like a lot of your frustrations last year and a lot of Liverpool fans' frustrations were that he was like playing midfielders as centre backs and vice versa, and it was like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what do you think? Like from what you've seen as a Liverpool fan. In terms of pre-season and whatnot, that looks different, I suppose. That we can.
Well, I suppose the thing you have to remember from last season is there was no pre-season. People were fired straight back into playing again. You know what I mean? So you didn't really get a pre-season, and I think a lot of it was that as well. I think this season we've had an impeccable pre-season. I don't know if anyone has seen the footage out there in Evian and all. What a place to go and actually have a pre-season. It's been amazing. And I think that's why I think this year you're going to see a lot of different players, the likes of Keita, the likes of Ox, playing a much bigger role in the team and stuff like that, pushing players for places and stuff like that. And I think that's what's really important to understand, that we've had a full pre-season. Yes, we've brought in Konate, and people are getting frustrated with the transfer window because we brought him in so early. We literally brought him in the first or second day the transfer window started. But I do think we will bring in at least another sign. I think it may be Saul Niguez, hopefully. And if we bring him in, I think we'll have a huge season. I think if Ox can stay fit, I think if Keita can stay fit, I think they're big players in terms of the season for us. And I think they will give us real viable options as opposed to that hesitancy that he has in terms of, will I put Ox on? Is he going to break down? If I put Keita on, is he going to break down? I mean, Keita, when you see Keita play and he's fit, he's an exceptional player. You know what I mean? And I just think, I think a couple of those guys, they could be even pushing Hendo at times for his place in the squad or in the team. So look forward to this season. Can't wait.
Okay, lads, we're kind of running low on time here because we're going to finish this up around the hour mark. So what I want to do is I'm going to go through everyone and I want you to give me your top 6. So I'll start with you, Graeme.
Sorry to offend anyone now.
Tottenham.
Is that in order? Is that in order?
Yeah.
In order.
In order.
Oh.
Okay.
For me, as a Spurs
Don't
man,
fucking
I
mention
think Chelsea are gonna win it. So Chelsea first, City
Spurs
second,
second.
Liverpool third, United fourth, Leicester fifth, and Spurs sixth.
Okay, Martin.
Jeez, that's ambitious.
Very ambitious. I'd probably go. I think City will win it. I think it's between us and Chelsea for second place this season. The United fan in me is going to say I think United will come second, Chelsea third, Liverpool fourth. I think Leicester could have a good season again this year if they can hold on to James Maddison. If he doesn't end up going to Arsenal, I think Leicester will hold there. And it's very hard. You're probably looking at Spurs for six, especially if they hold on to Harry Kane and if they bring in the likes of Lautaro or Martinez, they could possibly move a bit higher up that list. But it's all up in the air at the moment. But saying that as well, it's just a really tough year. You could replace from number 2 to number 4 there in any order. Really, I think City are going to be the team to beat. And if they get Harry Kane, I think it'll take an unbelievable team to knock him off first spot.
Yeah. Ian?
I think the unbelievable team to knock him off the spot has already literally got his number in every single game that he's played him last year, and that's Thomas Tuchel. I think he's living rent-free in Pep Guardiola's head when it comes to football matches. And I think that's going to be the case over the season. I think Chelsea will finish number 1. I'm not saying that we're going to win it by a landslide, but I think it will be number 1 Chelsea. I think City will come in second this time round. I do think Liverpool will come in third. And I think that will all be fairly tight at the top as well. As I said, I don't expect, like a 10-point gap or anything between these. I think it's going to be tight. I think United in a fourth. I think United will still get top 4. I still think, unlike Martin, no offense, Martin, but I still think United don't have enough yet. Do you know what I mean? It's Ollie's game management that I still don't trust yet to get them up there while teams are improving the way City and Chelsea are. Do you know what I mean? Chemistry wise. Yeah. But I still trust United enough to get, in the top 4. I would say then I think Leicester. Do you know what? I'm gonna throw a curveball. I'm gonna say Villa 5th, and I'm gonna say Leeds 6th.
Wow,
I think the signing of Buendia for Villa could be a huge signing. He just looks.
I think the whole squad that Villa have signed has been absolutely phenomenal. I think they are going to cause our teams here a lot of problems. And don't be surprised to see a few tears from all of us playing against the likes of Leeds and Villa next year.
What do you think, Niall?
Yeah, well, I can't come on here and not say Liverpool's not going to win the league, can I? So I'm going Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, United, and again, like Ian, I picked it last night as well, Villa and Leeds. That's my top 6.
I'm going to go with, I think, either Man City or Chelsea. I don't know. I don't think Arsenal are going to be there. I'd be worried about Man City not having a striker if they don't sign Kane. So I think Chelsea and Liverpool could battle it out. Maybe instead of City. So I'm going to go Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Leicester, Tottenham.
Now you fucking said Chelsea first, and now you're at the going Liverpool, Chelsea. Come on, let's flip it around.
between the two. It depends on Lukaku.
In closing off, I just want to say actually, like Man City have put all their eggs into this Kane deal. Mm-hmm. Lautaro is a perfect fucking striker for Pep Guardiola, playing at that false number 9. Yeah. Less money, without a shadow of a doubt, having him and the likes of Grealish playing off each other. Look, I don't know, maybe I'm talking shy here, but like I think Lautaro is he's tailor made for Pep Guardiola. No,
Yeah.
I find the biggest problem with City, and everyone's losing their mind about it. Not to keep you any longer, Morris.
the Kane thing is just I don't know. I don't see it.
I
City are
think the
talking
Kane
about-
thing is dead in the water because of the way he kind of came out. I was
But
saying to
even
Graeme on there.
even if he does go there, I still don't see what he does. I honestly, I think Kane is quite. I'm not going to say the word overrated, but he fits the Tottenham regime.
Well, no, the issue for me as well is they've come out and basically said that if they signed Grealish and Kane, that they'd possibly be moving out Sterling, Mahrez, and Jesus. And I'm thinking if you take Sterling, Mahrez, and Jesus out of that team, and you put in Grealish and you put in Kane, how much improved have they in reality?
Yeah,
And
they've
that's
lessened their squad depth. They've lessened their squad depth, but astronomically.
I think
Mahrez
the
was
Kane
absolute.
gone. I think the Kane thing is
Mahrez
gone.
was sorry.
No, I think the Kane thing is gone just because of what he said last week, and he's back and he loves Spurs and he's back to train. So I'd expect to see Man City set up this year with no striker. I don't think Jesus is good enough. I don't think he's at the quality that Aguero was. So it's going to be false nines, interchanging. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, and look, if you had a proper owner at Spurs or a proper director of football and not just some little rat bastard, no offense, Graeme, because I know he's no relation to you, so you don't
I'm not
you
going
know
there.
what I mean by this. But if I'm given the task, and I'm only an amateur, but if I'm given the task of making Spurs better at the same time making a profit, I'm getting a nice little chunk of money, and I'm saying, right, if these players are expendable in Mahrez and Jesus, give them to us as part of the deal.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt, because you're making your own team better. So it shows that your owner is quite clearly only interested in appeasing, the people that you don't see. The rats at the top.
Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of them.
Yep.
Right, lads, I'd like to thank you all for coming on today. Martin, podcast debut, and Graeme, Ian, and Niall, which you can all catch on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Various shows there. Football included, wrestling included, all interesting stuff. So I'll put the link to the boys' channel in the bio, and thanks very much, lads, for tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And the worst of luck to you all.
Come on, Liverpool.
Lucas for losers.